Welcome back to The Manager, the podcast where we reframe the invisible work of women as powerful leadership. I'm your host, Amy Rickabus, author of The Manager, entrepreneur, and mama of six. Today's guest is someone who knows management inside and out, not just from climbing the corporate ladder, but from teaching others to lead in their own way. Lynda Harvey has worked for major corporations like Verizon and Nordstrom's, and now she's on a mission to train new managers, especially those who never got the playbook. When companies didn't want to spend on training, Lynda took her message to TikTok, building a micro-learning platform on social leadership that's grown into a self-paced school and thriving community. As a mom of two teenagers, she knows that the skills we use to run our households can translate directly into leadership success. Today, we're talking about self-management, people management, and how to lead with calm, empathy, and confidence. Plus, why knowing who you don't want to be might be just as important as knowing who you are. All right. Lynda Harvey is in the house. Hi. So
Hi,
good to have you.
I'm so excited to be here.
I am thrilled. I was so excited when you reached out to us on social. You have such a big following. Totally bow down to you on that. It's amazing what you've been able to build.
Oh, well, thank you. It's been a bit of a whirlwind for sure, but really kind of an amazing ride.
That is fantastic. Yeah, do tell me. Okay, we could get into your origin story. So you've led teams in major corporations like Verizon, Nordstrom, and now you teach entry-level managers. Let's go back. Let's go back to how you got into all this in the first place.
Yeah, so we'll go back really far and we'll say, I think that I was always described as a very bossy little girl, which I now call executive leadership skills. So I think, forever it's been kind of a commanding, like, oh, you command a room, you do the things. So it's something that I fell kind of into management, right? I just kind of fell into management. I think as so many people do, and as I've gone on this journey, I find that that's the case for most people. So I just kind of fell into management, and I continue to just kind of go, and I'm very ambitious, and so I just kind of kept kind of climbing the ladder. And when COVID hit, I was like, hey, let's throw one more log on this fire and let's go get my master's. Like let's just go get my master's amongst all of the things that are going on. So I went back and got my master's, and I toiled over, do I get my MBA? And I was like, I really don't want an MBA. I really just wanted to focus on management and leadership. And I think an MBA does that. No slight to anybody who's done an MBA. But I really wanted to double down on leadership and management because I loved it so much. I just had found that through the years, I really enjoyed helping people develop, and I really enjoyed like helping people succeed in their career. And I thought, well, let's just get my master's in that. So I doubled down and I did that. And as I was going through this experience, I was learning a lot, right? Like, and I had been in management at this point in time for like 20 years. And I was just now learning that there was like documented styles of like actual, like studied, academically studied man. I just thought that was all made up. I just thought like people wrote books for like whatever. And I found all of these things, and that really opened my eyes to, oh, we need to like be more intentional with how we're managing. We need to understand, number one, what are the styles that we're leaning towards? What are the goods and bads of those, right? But then also like how can we be more intentional? And I really started to lean into this idea, and I was managing people, and I landed someplace in my career that I felt so secure in with my skills. But I noticed that my senior leadership, the people above me, really lacked the skills to manage. I'm talking like fundamental skills and the guidance that I was being given. And I was like, absolutely not. This is not going to work. We can't keep doing this. We've got to be better. And so I decided to just like take the leap and start training people and start like my own company. So I started my own company where I could partner with companies to help teach their managers, help train their new managers, because I felt like that was where the biggest opportunity was. Because managers step into their role and they're just like deer in the headlights. They have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And so they just like duck and hide and hope for the best. And they mimic what they've seen, whether it's good or bad. And I thought like I could make the biggest difference and the biggest impact with people who are newer to management, where we can like remold and like develop them. So I started doing
Yeah.
that. And then I decided, well, let's add public speaking to the gig too. Like, let's just do that. Uh, so I started, I speak in conferences and symposiums and all the things. And then I still felt like my reach wasn't large enough. And that's when I took to social media and I created like my own management community that people can join and learn the basic kind of tactical fundamental skills while still trying to figure out who they are. So, and that's how you and I connected.
Yeah, that is amazing. And so you like basically, and you went out to TikTok.
Yep.
So a lot of corporate leaders wouldn't think of TikTok as a training tool, but you've built a real following there and like a big one.
Yeah.
How did you go from quick social media tips to running a full learning platform, like on school with your community?
Um, so, I think that they were kind of symbiotic, really. It was
Yeah.
more of a, hey, I'm teaching these things, and people would reach out and say, well, do you coach or do you do these things? And so I just kind of sprung into building, unfortunately, um, the digital world is so amazing, right? It's so amazing. And the school platform hosts people just like me, hosts communities just like mine, where you can go on and you can have your classroom, you can have all of your stuff put in there, but then you can connect with people and you have a community that you can lock down and you don't have to put it on other social media platforms where people are just trolling your clients to have them be their clients. So this was really great. And it gave me a place where I could turn it on really quickly instead of having to spend years or so much time and energy and money in developing my own app. I was able to just like quickly springboard into this platform and then spin up kind of my own space and my own app.
That is so cool. I mean, I'm so glad that you turned me on to that. It would be such a great place for us to have the manage her community too at some point when we get there, you know? It's that, wow, this is so neat. I'm going to learn so much from you. And I was like, I always say moms make great managers, and you've said it too. Moms make great managers. Can you share some of the ways that parenting has shaped your leadership philosophy?
That's such a great question. Yeah, so I have said forever that I'm a better mom because I'm a manager, and I'm a better manager because I'm a mom. And really, I think that there's a lot of like parallels, right, when it comes to being a mom and a manager. Because when you become a mom, you're like, okay, this is the thing I'm gonna do. And then you're a mom and they hand you a human and they're like, have fun. And I feel like it's the exact same thing with managers. You're like, I guess this is the thing that I do. This is the next growth step for me. And then they're like, great, here's humans, bye. And it really is so much of like this sink or swim scenario where you're just like, okay, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do the things. But the thing that the things that I've learned fundamentally that have helped me so much as a manager that I've taken from motherhood. Um, First of all, try explaining anything to a toddler. Like, if you're not
Yeah.
very clear, and you have to be succinct too, right? Like, when you try and like explain gravity to a toddler, you've lost your audience. They're just gone, right?
Yes.
But if you're, but if you do little teeny tiny bites and you're succinct and you're like, this is what it is, then they can process. And I found that so helpful as a manager. When you're taking a concept that your team doesn't understand or something that's complex, and figuring out how to break it down into smaller pieces. And I think that that's why I've actually been really successful on TikTok as well, because we take these complex ideas and we make them small. So anybody can digest it. So anybody can take it and go, okay, that makes sense to me, right? So that's one thing I've learned. I've learned also like priorities, because you have got to figure out, you are going to, as a mom, you're going to have 80 different priorities and everything's a fire. Everything's got to be done right now. And
Yes.
you've got to figure out how to prioritize those things. I mean, you know, you're a mom. You've got to be like,
Oh
how
yeah.
how am I going to be like 8 places at
At
once?
once.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, like, leaning into understanding how to prioritize and how you let some things just drop, like, it's gonna be
Yeah.
okay, right? Uh,
Right.
and then I have a teen who's very into loopholes. Like, the kid could find a loophole anywhere. And specificity has been like and I think he's been like that since he's 3.
Yes.
He's looked for those loopholes. And I remember one time we went out to dinner on the evening of Halloween, and we went to dinner, and the server came and said, "Well, can we get you dessert?" And my son's like, "Yes." And I said, "No, honey, we're going trick or treating. You're going to have candy in like 20 minutes." And he's like, "But I don't have candy now." And I was like, "Okay, fair point, my boy, fair point."
Yes. Yes. Still a no, though.
Right,
Still a
right.
no.
Still a hard pass, but figuring out how to like guide through those loopholes, because you are going to have employees who are going to be like, "But you weren't specific, you didn't say." So learning specificity. But I think the biggest lesson, and I think this is the one that so many managers and parents probably need to always double down on, is accountability, right? So
Yes.
when
Yes.
we have to hold our kids accountable, you know, and I remember being a kid and thinking like, "You're just doing this because you hate me." And it's like, "No, I'm doing this because I love you," right? And
Yes.
often it sucks for me too. Holding you accountable sucks.
Yes, totally. But it's so
It
important. And
it's
it's like, oh,
it's
I learned that from my
so.
family before I learned that in business. And now I brought that into business and it is fabulous, I have to say.
Yeah, because if you're not holding your people accountable, you cannot be you can be successful for a while, but you cannot
Hmm.
have sustained success if you do not understand accountability, not only for yourself, but for your people. And I think
Yes.
that that has been, and it sucks too. I mean, I'm sure you've been in a situation where you have to terminate somebody, or you have to
Yeah.
do like really hold them accountable. And
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks for everybody. It's a terrible,
It's
awful thing.
It's always such a hard thing to do, but then you have to think of like the whole, the whole organism, is this best for the whole family? Is this best for the whole organization? And it's like, yeah, this is what's best for the whole. And
Yeah,
that's like our job as the manager is to oversee the whole, not just the individual,
exactly.
but the whole big picture, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Accountability is a big one.
It
It's a big mom one.
it is, and I think it's also, you know, it's something you have to, it's not something that you just learn and forget, right? Like, it's something that
Mm-mm.
you learn and you're constantly modifying and you're constantly applying. And you know what, i- and you're learning. It's just something that takes on a life of its own, I think.
Oh yeah. Once the light bulb goes on with accountability, you'll never stop holding people accountable. I feel like that's once you figure out that this is the thing that is a real change maker in your home and in your work. Once you tap into it, I was always just like avoid, avoid. Oh my God, it's so stressful. I don't like confrontation. And I think I could have been even so much more successful had I discovered accountability at a much younger age
I
because it's
Yeah,
one of those things.
I agree, and I
Yeah.
think that it's
Yeah.
just, it's so crucial. But it also, I think it creates more safety. And that's the thing. And I
Yes.
think that so many people are afraid of accountability because they're like, "Oh, I don't want to be like the dictator. I don't want to be this person." I'm like, I think it actually creates more safety with your team, because your team knows that if they make a mistake, that you will hold them accountable, but you will also hold others accountable, and you'll hold yourself accountable. And I think that this idea of constantly being afraid you're going to get in trouble at work, I think if you have a good culture of accountability, people aren't fearful. They know that, like, oh, if I mess up, we're going to have a conversation about it. But they are less fearful than people who
Yes.
avoid those conflicts and avoid those conversations.
Yeah, it's about consistent accountability. If you can create consistency in accountability and it applies to all people, including yourself, then you're good to go. You know, you're not being a hypocrite. It's, there has to be that consistent application of it though.
Yes,
It does create the trust, it's just like toddlers. It's one of the things kids, they teach you how they need boundaries, rules, limitations, give them boundaries and they feel safer. And it's the same with employees. They want to know what their code of conduct is. They want to know how to play within the parameter, and it's that accountability is one of those major reinforcing things that just says, okay, you stepped over the boundary, let's get back in it.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. So we talked about also inspiration versus aspiration, which I thought this was interesting. We got into this. Could you make a distinction between inspiration and aspiration, and how do those two concepts show up differently in leadership?
So, inspiration is kind of that's your spark, right? That's the idea. That's the exciting time, right? And that's where you start to build with your teams, right? You've got this inspiration and you're going and everybody's excited. Aspiration, I think, is the hard part. Aspiration is where the rubber meets the road, and that's your roadmap, right? So, I think of like Simon Sinek's book about, the whys, the whys and the hows. I think it's kind of a why and a how, honestly. Like your inspiration is like, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to go forward. But if you don't understand the aspiration, if you can't like really kind of continue to go through it and push that agenda, then your inspiration really doesn't mean anything, right? So, and I
Yeah.
think that if you have to pick one between either one of them, inspiration is wonderful, but I would pick your aspiration every single time, because those are when you think about your organization, those are the people who are really moving the needle. Those are the people who are really showing up every day and doing the work and doing the things. But if you have somebody who's got both pieces, who can inspire you and get you to like do the things, those are the leaders that we follow, right? Those are the leaders we remember. Those and those are the organizations. Like when you think from a branding perspective, or people who are really kind of change makers, right? Those are the people, right? And so that's why having inspiration and aspiration, if you can pair them, is like the golden ticket.
Got it. So as a manager, pairing both ideas and pushing both of those ideas into our employees that are underneath us.
Absolutely.
See if we can, yeah, inspire them and aspire. I
Yes.
love that. So tactical missions, you talk about identifying tactical missions. What does that mean and how can a manager apply it in everyday work?
So that's the meat and potatoes of what I teach, right? So I talk about the kind of how the long-term goal, right? Like when we think about who we want to be at our retirement party and what do we want people to say about us, that again is that kind of inspiration where you're like, this is what I
Mhm.
want people to think about and this is what I want them to do. That's all fine and good, but what happens when you have a poor performer and you have no idea what to do because you've never faced a poor performer, or you have you're faced with questions about personal matters, right? And I watch so many managers get so caught up in their head, right? About, oh, what do I do? And so, what I really try and teach, and I spend so much time trying to help people is, and again, I'm using that parent metaphor again, like you don't know what you don't know until you don't know, right? Like you've heard when
Yeah.
you get your baby in the hospital, they say don't shake your baby, right? And you're like, I would never
Mhm.
shake my baby. Why would I shake my baby? And they're like, they make you watch the purple video, the purple cry video before you leave the hospital, and you have to sign the paper. I don't know if they still do this. It's been a few years since I've had my babies, but you have to sign this video of like, don't shake your baby, right? And this is what's going to happen, and it's totally normal. And when you see this, don't freak out. Okay, well, nobody does that with managers. Nobody does that. So,
Yeah.
so as a parent, you get home and you're like cuddling your baby and you're so tired and you're doing the things and they're starting to cry. And then you're like, I need to put the baby down, right? Like it's crept into your mind because you spent this time with this tactical training of do not cross this line, do not do this thing, right? And it comes into your mind, even though you were like, why would I ever need this? Like, this is my baby's so perfect. It's never going to happen. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad I had this information. So I think of management the same way. You are going along and you're guiding humans, right? You're reacting to humans, you're interacting, and suddenly something happens that you were like, where did this come from? How do I even deal with this? And what we do, because we're humans, we react. We just react, and we react in a way more often than not very poorly, in like such a way
Yeah,
that really digs us in a really bad spot. Um,
I've seen
but
it.
if you have talked about these scenarios, if you've talked about major hurdles that every manager will have. It doesn't mean it's going to be exactly specific to your scenario. It doesn't mean it's going to play out that same way. But what's going to happen when you talk about these kind of tactical missions and you talk about these tactical skills, they're going to sit back in your brain. Right? They're sitting back in your brain. And when it comes up at work, instead of you shaking that employee, you can be like, okay, wait a minute, this is familiar. I'm not supposed to shake my employee, right? I remember I learned about this thing or I heard about this thing, and it doesn't need to be the dramatic scenario that I'm building up in my mind, right? So if we could spend more time on those tactical pieces and really like, we can talk about the work of a manager. The work of a manager is you support your team, you make strategic decisions, and you go home. But that's not the work, right? That's not the work. And I think that spending time understanding like the tactical things, the actual nitty gritty of the job, if we could spend more time understanding that, and you can't get that from all the books, right? Like you can't get that. And that's what
No.
I try and bring. I try and bring 20 years of my experience of going like, hey, I've seen this scenario time and time again. Let's prepare you for it so you don't shake that human when you have that scenario.
I love that. I love that. I think that works in so many different aspects of our lives.
And in general, don't shake humans. Just like the
Don't
overall
shake
rule.
your humans.
Don't shake
But
humans.
also just showing up prepared. I had another guest who actually worked with men. It was my only male guest I've had so far on the manager, and that's actually teaches husbands how to show up prepared, mentally prepared for difficult conversations.
I love
And
that.
just like he's like, you got to have that Navy SEAL mindset. And I was like, I love
I
that. Just
love
kind of coming
that.
in, being prepared. Because if you're just a little bit prepared, you're not going to shake.
Yeah.
It's like, don't shake
Don't
anybody.
shake
Let's
them.
not
Don't
do
shake
that.
them.
It's funny how we as mothers, though, bring our experience from motherhood into business. And I do think that there's this, as more and more women are, in the workplace and in higher positions in the workplace, I think that humanity will benefit from it because we really do. I mean, we have to work with these nonverbal little baby, fragile beings and figure out how to teach them to eat, walk, talk. We are able to do something that no one. We didn't go to school for it.
No.
We're not speech pathologists. We're not walk therapists. But somehow, I'm potty training right now, and I'm like finally
Oof.
potty training the last kid, and I'm like, this is so easy. Why did I make this so hard? I'm like, you just put some underpants on the little guy and let him pee himself a few times. He'll figure it out.
Yeah. Sometimes my daughter did
Yeah,
not. She
sometimes.
struggled a little with
Oh no.
that.
That's so funny. This guy, he's got it, but sometimes he doesn't want to pee in the potty, so I just let him pee in the backyard. He's like, no potty. I'm like, do you want to pee in the backyard? And he's like, yeah, sure. I'm like, okay, go for it, dude.
That's so great. I mean, and here's the thing also, like, you know, you would have never done that with your first, right? You'd be like,
No.
no.
I figured it out with my second son. I was like, oh, if I just let him pee outside, he won't pee in his pants. Done.
That right there is the best management skill you can learn, because it's like, okay, hey, listen, here's the boundaries. The boundaries are you're not supposed to do it in your pants, and you're not supposed to do it in the house other than in the toilet. But if you found another path and that works for you, who am I to say that that's the wrong path, right? Like, I think that
Right?
right there is like the best, and that's, I think, again, where we have to surrender our control, right? Where we're just like, okay, listen, I will just accept it. I will accept it if you can get it done and you can get it done well and it's ethical. Good job. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Although I was in the nail salon, that second child is now, I think he's almost 14. And I was in the nail salon the other day, and one of the women from the street that he was grew up on said, "Oh, I remember you. You were the one with the little boy who used to pee in the front yard all the time." Yep, that's me. Just whip him down the middle of the street and
You're
take a
like,
whiz.
he's fine and he's resourceful. That's all we need, is we need resourceful kids.
He doesn't do that anymore. It was just a phase. But, sometimes you have to make accommodations. I feel like if sometimes you have to be a little creative with things, and not just with your children, but with your employees as well.
Absolutely.
And, figure it out.
Absolutely.
Just be flexible. Be flexible.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
it hurting anybody? No, it's going to
No.
be fine.
No. Everything's fine.
It's all good. So, managing the unknown. People are the most dynamic and unpredictable part of running their business.
Mhm.
What's your advice for managers facing situations they've never handled before?
Uh, it's never as bad as you think that it is, right? So take a breath. Like, it's okay. Calm down. Take a breath. Almost everything can be undone. So if something has happened or something's taken place, like almost everything can be undone. It's okay to like relax. It's okay to chill out. It's not the end of the world. And I think that so often managers feel like because in their sphere, right, like they're the top dog, they're whatever, that they have to have all of the answers, that they have to know everything, and that their word is final. Unless it's your company and you're the one signing the checks, it's never final, right? So chill out,
Right.
right? And take a breath. It's okay to take a breath. And the other thing is, it's okay to not know something. And I see the biggest mistakes happen when managers are so afraid to say they don't know something. And I don't know where this fear comes from, if it's their fear that they'll lose credit with their team, they're fearful of their jobs, but it's okay to not know something. And in fact, it's better sometimes to not know something and say, you know what, that's a really great question. Let me find out. Let me get you the answer, right? I don't actually know this. And what that does is it supports your team in such a different way. Because here's the thing, if TikTok has taught me anything, everybody wants to think they're unique, right? Everybody wants to think that they are the only ones who do the thing. And so when you have somebody who comes to you and asks you a question that you haven't heard before or you don't know the answer to, and you treat it like that and you say, huh, that's a really good question. The power that you give to the employee is you are giving them a moment of pride where they're like, oh, I stumped my manager. I did this thing, right? So you're creating this really cool dynamic with your employee, and it's these little micro kind of recognitions that happen.
Mhm.
Then you get to learn something. So you get to give them praise of like, that's a really good question. I've never been asked that before, right? So they feel really special. You bought yourself time. You now look credible as a human because you're not a robot who knows everything. And it builds like it builds a stronger team when your team is like, I know that if they don't know something, they're not going to lie to me. I know they're not just going to make up the answer. They're going to say, I don't know, or I will get you the answer.
Mhm.
And so I think so many managers get caught in this trap of like, I have to be the end all be all. I have to be the authority. Everything I do is right and say is right. And I just am like, no, dude, take a breath. Take a breath, take a beat. It's okay, and I think that it just makes you more human, which makes you more relatable, which means people are, again, you just have better morale, you just have better culture. with that. So that would be the thing I would say.
Totally. And yeah, credibility for sure. It's like I actually had to teach ChatGPT not to lie to me if it didn't know something. I was like, don't make stuff up. If you don't know, just tell me you don't know.
Oh, Chat
I'm like,
GPT.
ChatGPT. I'm like, you lose your credibility when you make stuff up,
Little
buddy.
rascal. That little rascal.
Little rascal. I like that. It's true. You know, when you say, "Hey, I don't know. Let me give me a day or two, and I'll find out that answer for you."
I have
I'll get
stumped
back to
Chat
you.
GPT once. One time it just timed out. It's like there is no answer. And I was like, I feel kind of special. I broke the
You're
internet.
like, yeah, right. Point taken. There you go. Exactly. I'm like, did I just stump you? I did. Nice.
I won for the day.
Score one for Lynda.
Yes.
So, self management, you teach self management as a leadership skill. Definitely. What are your top strategies for managing your own reactions, staying calm, and leading with empathy?
I love that question. First and foremost, you have to know yourself. You have to do the work. And I learned this early on in customer service. So I really kind of came up in customer service. I've built support organizations, scaled support organizations for like the last 15 years. And the thing that I would always get I would always get handed escalations, always. It didn't matter if I was an agent on the phone or a manager or a director or a senior director. I got those escalations. And I got them because I was really good at diffusing them. And it's because I understood how I reacted. I understood and what I would do in a heated situation. And because I understood those things, it was very difficult to hook me. It was very difficult to get me to get a little hot under the collar every now and then. I'm not saying it never happened, but in general, it was really, really difficult. And when you become a manager, it's so crucial for you to understand what are your triggers. And you know, there's a lot of psychology to this, but it's like understanding if somebody comes to you and they're yelling at you, how are you going to respond? Because guess what? It's going to happen. If you have somebody who undermines you, how are you going to respond to that? And do those things bother you, right? And understanding your reactions helps you just control yourself, right? Like if somebody comes in hot, I know, okay, I don't need to come in hot. I know that I'm going to react this way when somebody comes in hot. So I need to flip this switch and come in softer, right? And so if you do that work, especially when you're a new manager and you understand those things, it's so much more difficult for people to rattle your cages, right? And you know, I recently did a series on bullies on my social media platforms, and I put it on LinkedIn as well because I found out that nearly 50 million Americans report bullying behavior at work, right?
Wow.
And that was shocking to me. I was shocked. I thought there's no way that it is that high, but I had put out a piece of content and people started responding, telling me about their bully. I mean, it was overwhelming. And so I started really diving in and doing the research. And the thing is I think so much of that can also, and a lot of the stuff I talk about in my bully series is talking about like how you shut it down, right? And how you name it and how you face it. And if you're not prepared, and that's the same case in any scenario, if you're not prepared or you haven't put, if you don't know how you're going to behave in a situation, it's impossible to combat it, right? And so that's why it's so important to know your triggers and understand how you behave in certain situations and heightened situations, especially as a manager, so you don't go hot, right? Because if you've got two people who are hot, nothing's getting done. Like no work is getting
Yes.
done. And
Oh,
again,
yeah.
you then lose your credibility. The manager who loses his cool at work, she she's done, right? She's
Oh,
like
yeah.
there's not a lot of coming back from that, and it's so hard to get the credibility back from your team. So that's why self-management is so crucial, and it's also like how you manage up. If you know your reactions and you know what you're going to do, your manager can't get your goat either. So your leader, if they're trying to get your goat, they can't get it. So if you're dealing with somebody who's narcissistic or bullying, or even if they're trying to get a reaction out of you, which again you can't come back from. So that's why it's so crucial, and that's why doing that work is so important.
Yeah, in my book, I really talk a lot about like managing yourself, manage her. I feel like the first step of manage her is to learn how to manage you,
Yes,
because you really can't manage anyone else unless you can manage yourself. I think good moms can manage themselves really well too, but I think a good leader in a business also, gosh, if you can't manage you,
yeah.
you know,
And
they're
that
just going to
doesn't,
follow you.
it doesn't mean that there aren't days that you're
Yeah,
sitting in the laundry room with ice cream and tears. Like it doesn't
it
mean
happens.
like just because you're good at self-management doesn't mean that you're not going to have
Yeah.
those moments, but you're going to have less of those moments.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and just kind of I think that sometimes there's just that idea of like, okay, owning the way you are.
Yeah,
Being honest with yourself about how you react in situations, being honest with yourself. What am I strong in? What am I weak in? What can I get better at?
100%.
And that's part of it.
100%. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just so I think as a leader, that's one of the things that we can always be working on is just being aware of ourselves and where we can improve. I always know I can get better.
Yes.
Even,
Yes.
it's one of those things. I will be continue to learn self-management until the day I die, I think.
I agree with you.
Yeah. And then roadmap for leadership. I love your idea that leadership starts with knowing who you are and also who you don't want to be. Can you
Yes.
walk us through that roadmap?
Yes. So, like I said, in my master's program, I learned about the leadership theories, right? And understanding like what are your natural kind of leanings when you're a leader. And understanding that, I mean, if you were to look at any kind of a map, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you don't know where you are, it's impossible for you to get to where you're going, right? And so understanding fundamentally who you are, but you also need to understand who you don't want to be. And again, that boils down so much to self-management. So one of the things when I talk about intentional leadership and we talk about like, what do we want people to say about you at your retirement party? Well, we also want to be like, what do we not want them to say? Right. And I think that we can all think of the leaders that we've had in our lives of oh, I never want to be like that. I never want to do that. But here's the thing, and again, back to self-management, we have reactions because we're humans and we're not perfect and we're not for everyone, right? But if we say, hey, I have a natural leaning when I get really upset, I am going to fly off the handle, right? But I don't want to be remembered that way. I don't want to be remembered as a hothead when it comes back into that self-management piece, okay, I know I'm going to react this way, and I also know that this is where I'm going to stop. This is where I'm going to use my safe word or whatever and get out of the situation. And again, that's the thing that we don't think about as managers again because we step into this thing and we're just trying to survive. And we don't and that's why it's so important for us to think about this because if we think about who we want to be then we start aspiring to be that person but then we also think about well, okay, well, I don't want to be this person either, right? And I think that comes back to parenting. How many of us as parents go, well, I'm never doing it like my parents did? Right, like
Totally. Well, how can I do this a little bit better?
yeah.
What worked? What didn't work?
Yeah, yeah. And so it's a similar concept of like, I'm just never
Yeah.
going to do it this way. And you're setting up again your boundaries. And when you're
Mhm.
operating, when you think about how you operate in a day-to-day, especially when you're in the business of humans, when you think about how I'm going to show up, but you also think about how I'm not going to show up, you're just creating a better, more whole you, but you're also creating a more stable environment, right? So that's why I think it's
Yeah.
so important for you to think about who do I not want to be either? Because it's easy. We fall into patterns. We fall into natural reactions again when we are caught off guard. But if we say, I'm not going to do it this way, then in our minds, the psychology is we're just not going to do it that way.
Yeah. I love it. I feel like that's sometimes it's so much easier to know who you don't want to be than who you are. Oh, well, I definitely am not going to do that.
Right, right. Like when you sit down and that you say to a little kid, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Uh, a lot of times, they have these big goals, but they're usually not going to tell you what they don't want to be. They're not going to be like, well,
Yeah.
I know I don't want to catch spiders, right? Like that's
Right.
not going to happen.
No, not gonna happen for sure.
No.
So something I want to end with something fun and light. So tell me, what's one fun thing you love doing outside of work?
This is so cliche. It's so cliche, but you will find I am a shopper, right? Like I am I think the first time you and I connected, I shared that I live in Utah and you're like, "Oh, do you ski?" I'm like, "Absolutely not. I do not. I do not do outdoor things. I do not hike. I do not camp. I am the worst Utahn ever, but man, I love to shop. And I like to shop not just in like for the shop of shopping, right? For me, it's more about like I love to find a good deal. I mean, I once bought a car um because I it had $14,000 in rebates and I was like, well, obviously this is my car. It was not something I had even like shopped or thought about doing, but I was like, oh, this is a deal. This is the deal of deals,
Such a
so I
deal.
gotta buy this, right? So, I mean, you'll find me like finding if I pay retail for something, you check behind my ears. It could be aliens.
Right?
Yeah.
You're like, I know, I love a deal too. I cannot help myself. I'm the same way. If I need to buy something, I would rather buy something used or at an outlet, or I love a good deal too. I feel you there, sister. I do.
You feel like you pulled one over on the universe. I think sometimes it's like somebody paid 300 for this. I spent 270 and you just like feel somehow and I think like so often in life, so often we feel like we just never get a break or we never get a win and we sometimes feel like the world's against us. And man, when I get that deal, I'm like the world is in my corner today. I did it.
Totally. Oh, totally. I know. I wanted this couch for like my husband and I. We had wanted this couch for like 8 years, and we'd go into the restoration hardware outlet and
Mm.
check. Nope, not there. Not there. Not there. Finally, right before COVID, got the couch on discount, like half price off of retail. Such a score. And every time I walk down the stairs and see that couch, I feel like a winner.
Yes, you should, because
I
that's
mean,
the best
could
thing
we
ever.
afford the couch at full price? Yes. But what I don't know what it is. There's just something about getting the deal. I mean, he's the same way. I mean, we are like Mohawk is all about getting the deal, and
Yeah.
it's like it's what drives the whole business, and it's so funny.
Listen,
We
I
love it.
think you should, and I think you love it that much more. I am with you. Like when you look at it and you're like, and people will be like, "Oh, I would have never guessed," and you're just like, "I know, I'm really that cool. Like I'm that cool, and I love
Yeah.
it still, right?"
I do. I do. And you're absolutely right. There's something special about it every time I look at that couch, every time I walk down the stairs. I'm like, even this morning, I was like, that is a nice couch.
I want to see a picture of this couch. I am in
I'm
full
gonna send you.
support.
It's just
Yes,
a cloud modular. It's gorgeous. We've just wanted it like forever. It was like on our vision board.
yes.
And yes, totally. I'll send you a picture. I know my living room is finally where I want it. And it's just, so awesome to talk to another woman who understands these things,
Ah,
Linda.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for bringing your practical wisdom to the conversation and for showing us that great leadership starts with self awareness and preparation, not panic. So big. And if you want to learn more about Linda's training programs, follow her on Instagram at linda.leads. Check out her TikTok or join her school platform for self-paced leadership learning and community. We'll have all the links in the show notes. And to everyone listening, remember, leadership isn't just about managing people, it's about managing yourself. Stay curious, stay grounded, and as always, keep managing you. Living